Okay. Hopefully. Yep. Okay. Looks like that's starting up. Um, Still got a couple of minutes. Um, Still got a couple of minutes, but I figured I'd start the stream now in case there was some sort of issue. Everything looks good. Um, so that's good. Got the chat up. So hopefully that works. Anyways, while I wait for um, people to show up, got a couple of minutes. Hey, Mike, how's it going? I figured I'd give myself an introduction in case you don't know me. I'm Ben. I do I'm half of the podcast Good Morning Greendale, which is a community rewatch podcast. Mike is in the chat. He's my co-host, and we do this podcast together. We just watch Community and we talk about it, and it's great. I do all the editing for the podcast. I've been doing this for this podcast, for our previous podcast, which is Back to the Futurama. I've also got two other side podcasts, Ring My Bell and Any Album You Like. So check those out. If what do I even say about myself? This is about Reaper. I am a big fan of Reaper, and it is very good, and it's great. It's $60, which is really cheap for what you get. So it is just very daunting. So I figured I'd do this as sort of an introduction to editing in Reaper. And it does look like it's 5 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Looks like we got a couple of people viewing. So the first thing that you'll notice, this is, oh, by the way, as part of my introduction, if you feel the need to buy me a coffee for this, the link is right down there, ko-fi.com/Ben Mooney. That's me. Not required by any means, but I figure I'm doing all of this. So, just in case you feel the need, that's where you can do that. So, let's talk about this setup here. So, you may notice, if you've ever opened Reaper before, this looks a little different. I've really simplified the number of buttons that are up here. There's a great video, and I don't remember the guy's name, but it's called Reaper for Radio, and he talks about kind of setting up Reaper. I've took a lot of his advice on that, and so I've really simplified this toolbar. There's actually a lot more that I could get rid of just for podcasting. Things like this metronome, that kind of stuff. I do some music production. So I have some stuff that you're not even going to use doing podcasts. I just kind of have that here for me. But you can reduce a number of these, which helps a lot. I think these meters down here are not in their default location. I set it all up literally in 2016, so it's been a while. The only other things that I want to call attention to before I get started is that you can go into this action list here. So if you go up to actions, this is a list of everything Reaper can do, and it's a lot of things, but you can change around all of the shortcut keys. I've done two major ones. You can look for them here in this filter. I did volume. Where is it? Yeah, so this one, toggle track pre-effects volume envelope visible. I'm going to be using this a lot. So if you're doing it like how I do it, you're going to want to set this. I set it to the V key, which, I use it a lot, and I'll show you why that's important later. The other thing that I have done is I have changed. I've added the letter F, just the F key, to the remove items, tracks, envelope points, etc. I've moved that to the letter F, and that way I only need one hand to totally change stuff on the track. So I have one hand for my mouse, and then I have one hand for all the actions that I do. That's a pretty recent change. I just did that recently, and it's sped up things quite a bit. So those are the two big ones that I use. So you will notice I don't have the episode up. I should probably do that. You can see all my stuff here. Hopefully there's nothing embarrassing in there. And that's my, okay. I'm going to move this off to the side. Why did I load that up? That's weird. It's weird that I'm doing this live because I'm not, oh, you know why it's not on the list? I haven't plugged that hard drive in. Okay, give me just a moment. This is awkward. Also, if you can hear any party sounds going on, my neighbors downstairs decided to have a party. So you might hear that. Hopefully not. Okay. Okay. So let's try that again. So here's my external drive. I've got, this is the most recent episode that we've recorded. And my friend Mike, who records this remotely, he sent me that track. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in there. Now you'll see that I've already got this set up a little bit. So you can set up templates. And I'm not going to go over that just yet. You can set up templates so that when you start a new episode, so I'm actually going to pull up this template here. This is what it looks like when I go to record. And I'm not going to go over how to record an episode. I can do that at some point, maybe later. And you can see it's already primed with the right inputs and everything. My voice is being picked up. And I already actually have all the effects set up in this template. So it saves me some time later on. So we recorded this earlier today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag the track that Mike sent me down into here. It'll load it up. Takes a little bit to build all the preview stuff. We record kind of a lot. So it is a long track. Okay, there we go. So since Mike usually starts hitting, he hits record usually before I do. So you can see that his track is a little bit longer. The way I usually take care of that is if you... I just usually slice off the very beginning of the track a couple minutes into it. So with his track selected, that's right, Mike, we do record a lot. With his track selected, I put the cursor where I want to cut, and I just hit the S key. That is S is in Sierra, and that just splits the track. So I select what I want to delete, and then I hit the... usually the delete, but like I said, I changed that to F just to do that all one-handed. So I'm scrolling in, I'm zooming in and out with the mouse wheel. But I just do that, just kind of line that up there at the end. And then the home key will bring me all the way back to the start of that track. So the thing I really like about Reaper is that it's non-destructive. So what that means is that I chopped off that bit at the beginning of Mike's track. But let's say that that was too much. Well, I can just drag this, just click sort of on the end here and just drag that over. So like if I delete too much, say I did that, and I'm like, oh no, I really needed Mike to say the things that he did. I can just drag that back over. It doesn't actually delete anything, which is really helpful. Hey, Elizabeth, how's it going? So you'll also notice that I've got this mic backup track here. When we record, just in case, for whatever reason, his computer eats the audio, I have a backup. So I'm still going to line this up, and just in case. There might be something kind of funky on his track or whatever. But once that's lined up, I'm actually going to mute it. And the reason why I color this orange, which you can do by right-clicking, and then you pick track color, and you can set it to whatever color you want. I set that to orange so that I know that's the track that I kind of want to ignore. That's only going to be relevant if you do any sort of backup recording for remote. Keep in mind, since we've been doing since we've been recording through the time of COVID, we do everything remotely. So now usually we do what we call pre-show banter. We have a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning of the track that we upload to Patreon. I'm going to skip that for now. So I'm just going to find the spot where we have synchronized. And what we do is we just pull up time.is and we clap at the right time. And you can see these big spikes here. So that's where I clap, and it looks like that's probably where he clapped. And so I'm going to just play that.
I'm Mike. Cool.
So let's go ahead. Let's sync on 5. I gave a big lead in.
Ooh, that hurt. Oh boy,
yeah,
I didn't not need to go that hard.
Cool. Ow, so he clapped way before I did, so I can just kind of drag his track over. Oops. So you can zoom in pretty far here and make sure that that is lined up. We record over Discord, which for whatever reason, loud noises make it so that it actually cuts out. So I don't have that on the backup. So I'm just going to try to line up his backup track as best I can. And so now, if you just play this track, it should all be lined up.
Ooh, that hurt. Oh boy, I didn't not need to go that hard.
So
Ow.
Discord does this thing. So you can see I actually got it pretty good. Even though Mike's backup track isn't muted yet, it didn't sound like any echo. So that's pretty great for me. So now that is synced up, I'm going to go ahead and mute Mike's backup track. So it still exists, but for the rest of the editing, we're not actually going to hear that. So the other thing that I do now is if you click kind of in this area below the tracks, and then you hit the S key to slice, it'll slice all 3 of those tracks. And then I'll just go ahead and delete those. And then the next thing that I do is I want to group those tracks. So why do I want to do that? Well, we spent all that time lining up those tracks, right? So if I grab this audio for my track and I drag that around, well, now we're out of sync again. So, I have to find somewhere to synchronize that up. So I'm just going to undo that. So if I hold shift and I select all 3 of those tracks and I just hit the G key, you can see they've got this little icon now. So I've grouped them all up. So if I drag my track, it will also drag all the other tracks. Super handy. So now I've got that going. So that's pretty good. And sorry, give me just a moment. There's some forest fires going around, and so my throat is a little rough today. And naturally, I'm doing this after already recording today. So now I just got to find where we actually start. So Discord does this thing sometimes. Oh, that's right. I clapped again to make sure I knew where we start. So we start way over here. So there's one other trick for synchronizing this up that I want to talk about, and that is ripple editing. So what is ripple editing? So I have this little button over here for toggling ripple editing. And what that does is that when you move a track, what that'll do is there's three modes. One is totally off. One that I just clicked on now is ripple editing per track. And so what that'll do is if I slice that track, you can see all three of those got sliced because they're grouped up. But the problem is if I hit the delete key, well, now it's out of sync again because it moved all of that, right? So I'm going to undo that. So if you click this again, and this is a button that I think you need to add to the setup. I don't think this is there by default. If I click that again, if I delete that, it's going to move all of those tracks, which is great. So you might be wondering, well, why would you ever use the one that's just one track? So let me just demonstrate that for you. If I chop this, and so I have that. If I chop that out, and I've got this one per track, if you can see, if I drag this, it drags it all along with that extra space. So what that's doing is it's basically using that as a reference point to drag the rest of the track, like everything that comes after it. And you can see even if I ungroup this one, it's still gonna drag that. So I hope I explained ripple editing okay. It's kind of a weird concept. You'll see it more in practice here in a little bit. I'm just gonna undo all of these edits that I did. Now the only other thing before we actually get really involved in the actual editing process is I've got all of these effects turned off. I do that when recording just because I don't know if it actually makes a difference, but I don't want it to necessarily be using the processing power to have those effects while I'm recording. So I'm just going to go turn those on. Let's talk about the effects that I actually use. So both of these tracks have effects chains on them. And they're a little bit different on each track. I'm also going to hide my face. I don't need my webcam on anymore. That's fine. So each one of these tracks has an effects chain. So the nice thing is you can save these effects chains and apply them, or like I do with the templates, I have the effects chains built in. I didn't actually hide the webcam. There we go. I have all of these effects chains built in to that template. So every time I go to record a new one, these effects chains are just waiting for me. I've got a very simple effects chain set up. I'm not going to go too in depth with them because honestly, I've kind of fumbled around and found what works for me. You could probably find a lot better descriptions of what the effects chains actually do. But my simple chain is that I've got a noise gate. And so what that means is that anything under a threshold of -30 decibels is not going to come through. This is great for hiding background noise. When we were recording in the same room, it's great for preventing echo from when Mike talks and it echoes back into my mic. So if anything comes in at under -30, it just won't play. I've got a compressor which is attempting to make the entire track a more standard volume. Honestly, I am probably the last person you want to talk to about how the compressor works. I stabbed around at it until I found something that worked. The important thing is that you do want to make sure this auto makeup check mark is checked, because what the compressor is actually going to do is it's going to take all the loud things and make them quiet. So what this auto makeup does is it brings that track back up to a sort of loud level. So if you don't have this checked, you are just making the track quieter. And then I do a really simple equalizer. Again, this is going to be very different depending on what your own voice sounds like. The one I have set up for Mike is different than the one I have set up for me. So, and then you can see Mike also has basically the same thing. It's got different values. You can see that sort of different equalizer. And then the last thing I do is on the master track, I add this one effect called the Simple Peak 1 Limiter, and I just set that to negative 2.5. I'm not 100% sure what this does, to be honest. Basically, what it does, like I don't know what the technical aspect is of it, but what it does in practice is it means it helps to limit the output. It doesn't ever actually go above 0 decibels, so it helps prevent those. It helps prevent clipping, but also it does, in my experience, help to raise the volume of that track a little bit. And I just put that on the master track so that it doesn't clip when we're both talking really loudly. So there you go. That's the setup. That was 20 minutes of me talking about how I've set this up. So let's get into the actual editing. So, where did classes? Okay.
Good morning.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, the very start of the show, every episode, we have a sound clip from the show we do, Community. I'm actually going to unprime these here. So I'm not going to go into specifically how I do this. There are a lot of different ways to do this. So what I do, and I'll show you the program, but I won't go too into depth. There's this program called Loopback. I really love it. I'm not going to go into it because it's a $100 Mac only program. And it is amazing. Basically what it is it's very advanced audio routing. You can see I'm actually using this for the audio that you are all receiving right now. But it sets up virtual devices, and I have one that literally just records whatever comes out of Firefox. So you won't actually hear the audio coming in from the episode of Community I've got. But I just set that as the input device. There's also this allow use of different input and output devices. It says not recommended, but I do that anyways. I just set that to my audio interface, and there you go. So you can't hear the Community audio because I don't want YouTube to get too mad at me. So right now, over off the screen, I am looking for just a clip that I want to use for the intro. I'm going to go ahead and prime the track. You can see that even though you can't hear it, I've got basically just Hulu up over here. So just give me a moment while I search for a good track. Okay. So when I find that, I'm just going to go ahead and record. So I got my audio clip. I'm just going to save that. It saves right into, yeah, Elizabeth, I will totally tell you more about Loopback. It is a great freaking program. So now I've got this clip, and you'll actually be able to hear this now.
Toilets and sinks, real things. Things that people always use and always need to get fixed. This is a life, kid. A real one. Doing something that matters, something that makes sense.
The only thing that makes sense is this. Learning. Thoughts. So I can think and get a student loan and grind my own coffee and understand HBO.
So it's a little bit longer than I usually do for a an intro, but I love that line, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it. The next thing that comes is I add in the opening music. So I just add another track, and this is just as simple as hitting the insert key on the keyboard and digging out where the intro is. And I've just got an intro sort of pre-cut into this, so I don't have to worry about manually trying to fade it out in and out every time. So now, if I go back...
Toilets and sinks, real things. Things that people always use and always need to get fixed. This is a life, kid. A real one. Doing something that matters, something that makes sense.
The only thing that makes sense is this. Learning. Thoughts.
Hell yeah, that's
so
a
I
good
can
line.
think and get a student loan and grind my own coffee and understand HBO.
So then we got the intro, and like I said, it just has sort of an auto fade out. So I'm going to go ahead and find... So I just drag that over to where I want it.
Good morning, Greendale.
So you'll notice that our intro is a little bit off. We, of course, decided to do a unison intro before COVID when we were recording in the same room. Now we do it after. So I usually cheat a little bit, and what I do is I will go ahead and split that track. I'll hit the U key to ungroup that intro. And I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and I'll just, oops. Yeah, this is why you want this ripple editing button, because I actually want to turn that off right now. I don't want the rest of the track to come with me. I would recommend against ever really turning that off in a situation where you're both recording in the same room. You don't ever want that track to get out of sync. Echoes are going to sound really weird. My editing has changed a little bit since we've been doing this remotely. So I'm just going to try to get that to line up visually.
Good morning, Greendale.
See, there we go. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and turn ripple editing all the way back on. Ripple editing for all tracks. And so now you can see, like, if I move this, it moves all the tracks up above it. And if I just have it on the per track, you don't get that. So that's kind of the difference between those. It takes a little bit of getting used to, I'm not going to lie. So that is all of the setup that I do for editing, excuse me. I've got the effects, I've got the opening, I've got the intro. So now it's just kind of going through and editing. So it's as simple as just you click on the audio track, hit S, again, that is as in Sierra, and then hit delete. Oops, it helps if I have all track editing on. See, that button comes in handy. Oops, what did I do? What did I do? Okay. There we go. Okay. Anyways.
Morning, Greendale. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ben. And so you'll notice that there's this kind of big gap because, again, we're recording this remotely. So there's kind of a delay between when I talk and when he talks. So a thing that I really like doing is, especially if you've got that noise gate on. So whenever I'm not talking, it's totally silent. And whenever he's not talking, it's totally silent. I just like to split the track and then just drag that over and basically just do that. It basically about halves the silence between us talking. And so you still get a little bit of silence between us, but it really makes it sound a lot more natural. So This was before
Greendale. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ben. And so if I just drag that over, again, just about basically just so it starts fading out as he finishes and fades in just as I start, it sounds more like this.
Greendale. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ben. And so it's a nice way to just really quickly cover those gaps without having to delete a lot. If you over delete, you can get a really sort of choppy sort of sound in it. And so I like using that as sort of a shorthand to make it sound a lot smoother. So,
Mike.
And I'm Ben, and these are your morning announcements. One thing I also forgot to turn on. I hate it when I'm recording with it, but when I'm editing, I like this options continuous scrolling.
Dale. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ben, and these are your morning announcements. Today, we're talking about Community, Season 1, Episode 24, English as a Second Language.
Ben, have you ever slept through a final?
So you're going to get a lot of these gaps just because of that delay in recording remotely. So, again, I find just barely doing that. And sometimes for longer gaps, I will actually edit out. I'll actually cut out pieces instead of just kind of dragging that over. But again, I like how much more natural it sounds to kind of have that fade out and fade in. I imagine it's probably pretty obvious, but if you're not aware, these lines basically are, if you drag in, it'll crossfade tracks. And so that's what these little red lines are. You can actually also manually edit those by clicking on the very top part of the side of the track, and you can kind of change how that fade actually works. I don't usually mess with it. I find the automatic one is actually pretty easy.
Final.
So no, I don't. So we got our first already. Look at that. So all I do is, again, just click at the end and hit S to split it. Click at the beginning, hit S to split it, and then hit delete. Surprisingly, I have not, despite the fact that the number of classes, the number of finals weeks where I was staying up all night to finish something and then immediately had to go to a final was another. So this is the much more boring part of the edit, because it's basically just kind of listening through, finding out the things that need to be edited, and just chopping them out like that. To a final was a lot because I'm a procrastinator.
Sure.
And ADHD makes me really, 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 really terrible at all of that. However, I've never slept through a final. I have had many dreams. So again, I don't like leaving too much silence between, even when it's just me talking. The interesting thing I find is that when you are talking and you sort of take a poignant pause, you are, at least in my experience, you are pausing a lot longer than you think you're pausing. And so when you're listening back to the track later, it's like, oh, holy crap, I really let that pause linger. So a lot of times I'll just kind of do that, shorten that pause up. I have had many dreams in which I realize the day of the final. So the day of the, just cutting out realize the day of the final that there was an entire class on my schedule I didn't even realize I had.
Sure.
That's sort of my ongoing school nightmare, despite the fact that I graduated like 11 years. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that one in because I sort of go like 11 right from the into the like, and you can edit those out, but honestly, you're going to drive yourself insane if you try to get every single that you say. Like 11 years ago.
Sure, normal amount of time ago to.
So, you'll remember way back at the beginning of this video, I had you go in to set up the V key to be the pre-effects volume. Now, this is why I do this. So you'll notice that while Mike is talking, I give an years ago.
Sure, normal amount of time ago to be.
Now, it sounds better. I don't strictly need to edit that out, but it'll sound better if I remove that. Now, I could, if I really wanted to, turn off ripple editing, splice that, ungroup this, and delete it. Now I've got this big old gap. I've got, there's a lot of potential for this to cause me to start editing out of sync. It's also just kind of a pain. So if I undo all of that, if I click on my track and I hit the key that we set to bring up this pre-effects volume, what you can do in here is you can set basically keyframes or anchor points, however you want to call them. I come from a space of video editing, so I like to think of them as keyframes. But anyways, you can set points where you raise or lower the volume. So there are a couple of ways to do that. One is you can, if you hold the shift key and then click, it might be a little bit hard to see, but there's this mint green dot here. And then I can do like a bunch of them and like lower and raise the volume. But even that I find to be kind of it takes a while, right? And we've got an hour and 20 something minutes to edit. So, I like doing things fast. So what I do is if you hold the command on a Mac or control on PC, it turns in this little, your cursor turns in this little pencil icon. So what that allows you to do is that allows you to freehand draw these anchor points, right? So what I just do is I hold command and just bottom that out. Boom. That is gone. That took no time. So again, compare, doing all that chopping and whatever. Instead I just hit V, boop, it's gone. Now, the one thing that you really have to worry about with this is that if I chop this, these anchor points come with it. So if I take this too far, like I'm muting out weird parts of the track. So it is something that you have to look out for. I did actually release an episode of this podcast where I accidentally screwed that up. And so there was about 30 seconds where my voice was just getting softer and softer and softer and softer until it faded out. And then Mike was responding to things that I didn't say. So that is the one major thing that you have to look out for. But this is also helpful in case there are moments where maybe, someone kind of started backing up off the mic a little bit. And so it starts getting a little quiet. You can just add a couple of keyframes or anchor points and then just raise or lower or, whatever you need to do. It helps fill in those gaps with the compressor because, again, probably because I'm not great at setting up the compressor, to be honest. But, if I think not to put Mike on blast, I know he's watching this right now. But when Mike gets very serious, his voice really just kind of gets quiet. And so I will usually have to bring his volume up just a little bit manually. And it's not a huge thing. And it's really easy to do with this. And all this is doing is basically raising or lowering the volume before it goes into this whole effects chain. That's what the pre-effects thing means, if that wasn't obvious. So that's why I recommend going in and setting up that V key to open up that volume envelope. So anyways, that was a long way to say 11 years ago. You can get rid of the
Sure, normal amount of time ago to be have graduated.
Leading in with an I do feel like so So yeah, I'll do this a lot too. Instead of doing that thing where like I chop this in half and I kind of do this. Oops, I've turned off ripple editing again. That's the one that you got to pay attention to, that ripple editing, unfortunately. So instead of doing this, because I just lead in with an in this case, I am just going to go ahead and delete that and it'll be fine.
Graduated.
I do feel like everyone sort of has their own sort of school nightmare scenarios, even though school nightmares, even though none of us have been in school for a while. So I kind of stumbled there. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up a little bit. Scenarios, even though school nightmares, school sort of school, even though school nightmares, school nightmares. Finding this entry point is a little tricky. School nightmare. There we go. And just delete that. Has their own sort of school nightmares, even though none of us have. It's not the best. I'm gonna try. Like I said, you can really go insane. Sort of school nightmares, trying to get rid of sort of school nightmares, even though none of us have been in school for a while. Mine is definitely I literally didn't even know that I had this class. So another thing that honestly I need to get better at doing, so you'll notice I stopped that because I found an and so I hit the space bar, sort of school nightmares. What that does, so the space bar sends the it stops the playback, but it sends the cursor back to where it was. Sort of school nightmare. So if you hit enter, it'll actually stop the cursor where you tell it to stop. Sort of school nightmares. And I just, because again, I do basically all my keyboard commands on the left hand. I tend to forget about that, even though none of us have been in, and it drives me nuts a little bit because even though none of us have been in school for a while, I could be better about that for a while. Mine is definitely I literally didn't even know that I had this class. So see, there you go. And then, that way I don't have to click into where I actually want the thing to stop. But had this class. It's not the end of the world. So that's mine. Have you ever, have you ever slept through a final? And B, do you have any specific school nightmares despite having graduated many years ago?
So, okay, excellent. This is go.
Also, a thing that I didn't really talk about before is that down here on these audio sliders, this actually will have kind of the peak of where the audio is. So generally you don't want it to clip. If it does, you can click on the little red square and it'll clear it out to go back to monitoring for sound. I didn't clear that earlier. I'm going to assume it was because Mike clapped when we were doing our synchronization earlier. Had this class, but so you can see right now, it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if YouTube compression is going to kill that, but right now I'm peaking at about -8.5, and waited many years ago.
So, okay, excellent. This is going to be very fun. So yeah,
Mike tends to be a little bit louder than me, which is just how it is. So you can see he's peaking a little bit higher up. So what I'll usually do is I'll bring him down maybe about a decibel. I find that helps just a little bit. You want to try to shoot for about both people being the same. I don't fight it too much, just because like I said, Mike's a loud guy, and that's totally fine. He's enthusiastic, and I'm not. So, waited many years ago.
So, okay, excellent. This is going to be very fun. So, yes, I've definitely slept through a final before.
Oh, no.
It came, so I think it was a winter final, like right before winter break. And I was dog sick, just, so sick. And I was just making it through. And I slept through, I think it was calculus.
So see, there's another, like, he paused for dramatic effect, and it was very dramatic. Oops,
I think it was
but a little bit too dramatic. So gonna just shorten that up.
I think it was Calculus 3 final.
Okay.
And I
And so again, I've got that little, okay, like I make a little noise there. I don't even know what that is. Okay. So I'm just going to go do that same thing again, where I'm just going to bottom that out there. Okay.
And I and for whatever reason, the professor was cool about it. It's like, I get it. You're totally sick. I'm going to let you make it up. And I made it up like the next day, and everything worked out fine. But man, I just remember the emotion you expect to have the moment you wake up and you realize you've missed an exam. That is real 100%. I was sick, and I thought I was going to die.
So there is a little bit of a good old mouth sound. Yeah, dig it. I like to cut those out where I can.
I was sick, and I thought I was going to die because of how sad I was, like how much I had messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But everything worked out in my favor. I have been graduated for 10 years, and everything seems to be going well. And no one has said, "Hey, you didn't actually get a degree yet." Similar to the podcast police that is going to shut this down. I'm sure there's a diploma police that's going to come by and be like, "This isn't a legitimate diploma."
Also, just in listening to this, I think I turned Mike down just a little bit too much. There we go.
That's my expectation, pretty much at all times now. But the only thing.
Oh, Mike, no, I make my fair share of mouth sounds too. Trust me, I've been editing this for 3 years.
Pretty much at all times now.
Almost 4 years.
The only thing that's changed is that they're going to be wearing face masks.
Right.
in my anxiety.
So there's another so I'm just gonna boop, is gone. Right.
In my anxiety. I don't have any specific school dreams, but I do have a recurring dream that started when I was going to school, if that makes sense. It's not a nightmare.
Yeah.
So my wife went to a school.
And again, see, there's my own sort of little mouth sound.
Called Sweetbriar College. It's in school called.
Cutting out those
School called Sweetbriar College. It's in, near Lynchburg, Virginia, and it is all.
So one thing I did want to talk about, I assumed by now it would come up naturally, but I'll just get into it. So let's say I cut off a little bit too much on this right? It happens.
A school called Sweetbriar.
Like, it doesn't sound super great. So the nice thing is that unlike in destructive editing programs like Audacity, and not to crap on Audacity too much, I do think it's a very great program and free, which is awesome. Since this is not destructive, what we can do is we can just kind of pull this over, and then just sort of you can literally just pull this audio clip start point. And so now it'll sound a lot better.
A school called Sweetbriar.
Even then, I can add just a little bit.
A school called Sweetbriar College.
Sounds so much more natural, right? So that's a really helpful thing. And that also applies to all of the effects chains as well. So let's awesome, Mike. Thanks for tuning in. This should be available later if you want to go back and watch the rest of it. So thanks for tuning in. So yeah, this also applies to the effects are also non-destructive. So this is really helpful for playing around with effects when you're trying to get things to sound good. So let's say you're like, oh man, I want Mike to sound super bassy. And you're like, this is going to be great.
My wife went to a school called Sweetbriar College.
And you're like, oh no, that sounds awful. Well, you didn't destroy anything, right? You can just bring that back down.
My wife
You don't even need to undo, even if you saved it, whatever. It's all the effects are done in real time. And so that, in my opinion, is the main reason to not use Audacity. the fact that nothing is destroyed in the process of making these episodes means that if you screw up or your computer crashes or whatever, you don't have to worry about it. It's also really helpful, especially when you're playing with like the sound gate. Like it's really easy to accidentally do too much. So like
my wife went to a school.
Okay, well it's not as easy as I thought. So like, oh no, I slightly overdid his.
My wife went to a school called Sweetbriar College. It's in near Lynchburg, Virginia.
So like that's what it sounds like if you go too hard on the noise gate in Audacity. Once you apply that noise gate, it's applied. If you didn't save a backup, then your audio is now ruined. So not again. I'm not trying to crap on Audacity too much. It is just once you go non-destructive editing, it's really hard to go back. So anyways, I went on that whole rant and I don't remember where we are in the episode, so I'm gonna go back and listen to it.
Changed is that they're going to be wearing face masks.
Right.
In my my anxiety. I don't have any specific school dreams, but I do have a recurring dream that started when I was going to school, if that makes sense. It's not a nightmare.
Yeah.
So my wife went to a school called Sweetbriar College. It's in, near Lynchburg, Virginia, and it is all women's school. It's a great school.
So there's just another pause. I'm just gonna shorten that.
Women's school. It's a great school. We had
edit out the ums. So yeah, I mean, this is most of the bulk of editing is sort of just this
school. We had to, I'm planning on sending any daughters that I have there. I love it. We love it. We're, Stacy is a legacy. She's third in her family, I think, something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good old coughing. All right.
So,
and I'm going to get that mouth sound while I'm at it too. So for fine tuning, I don't tend to use it, but for fine tuning, the left and right on your keyboard can really help you dial in where you want to get that. And while I don't always go in and clean up these gaps, but like sometimes I'm just like, well, I'm already here, so I'm just going to clean this up just a little bit.
I think something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it is it's a female only school.
Okay, I'm gonna.
It's a male only. It's a female only.
So I'm just he sort of not really like stuttered, but kind of a false start.
It's a female only school.
So just trying to dig out where that first "it's" is, which all of his peaks here kind of look the same. So. It's kind of why I went just one by one. Sometimes it's a lot more obvious, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut that. Okay.
So it's a female only school. So I went. Okay. So it's a female only school. So I went there because, you hang out, and my wife had a dorm room or whatever. But.
So, yep, it's just cutting out those ums. My downstairs neighbors are going back to having a party.
Room or whatever.
If you hear any of the party noises, I apologize.
Room or whatever. But I started having this weird dream whenever I was there that I was just peeing wherever I could. Like I would be.
So there's sort of I think personally, in talking with other podcasters, there is sort of this war on trying to excise every that exists. But honestly, sometimes I think the ums really accentuate, like here in Mike's story about his dream about peeing. I'm going to clean that up while I've got that paused. But I'm actually going to keep that in, like just sort of that poignancy of like him trying to articulate what is going on. So I'm actually just going to leave that in. I think it sounds better, to be honest.
just peeing wherever I could. Like I would be asleep in her dorm room or whatever because I was visiting for the weekend, and then I have a dream that I was just peeing nonstop into like a plant. And
so this is another great use of the pre-effects thing. So you can see that I'm laughing up here, right? But it is a little bit, it's a little bit quiet. And so what ends up happening is that the noise gate comes in and only a little bit of my laugh comes in.
Up into like a plant. And
like if I make this the solo track, like you can, it sounds a little bit weird to listen to, right? Like it fades off and then there's a hard cut of the noise gate coming in, and then it comes back and it sounds a little awkward. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set 2 pairs of these anchor points on the volume. I'm going to raise that up just enough so that hopefully the noise gate no longer cuts that off. So there you go. And I could even sort of bring this down a little bit to make it a little bit more uniform. You can do a lot with the with these anchor points. One other thing to note, because it is like once you you know, set this anchor point, it can be kind of hard to find exactly where 0 is. So if you just double click, it goes back to 0, and that's true for just about anything in Reaper, to be honest. So like if I did this too much and I double click, it'll go back to its starting point. Although I don't want it at its starting point right now. But it's just a nice little tip in case you need to get something back to 0, or, you know, whatever the effects are like. You know, again, if I bring the master volume down way too low, I can double click it and it goes back to 0. So it's a nice little quick hack to get things back to where they should be, and you don't have to try to dial that in manually or anything.
Stop into like a plant. And this would go on for a little bit, and then I woke up. I'm like, I have to pee so bad.
And so this sometimes happens. Usually what happens when I'm editing is usually I have to turn myself up a little bit and mic down a little bit. So in this case, the compressor is trying what it can.
I have to pee so
But that's, you know, pretty loud. It's not truly clipping or anything, but it is a little bit jarring. So I'm going to go ahead and do that same trick. Just set 2 pairs of the anchor points and then drag that line sort of in the middle and see if that sounds better.
woke up. I'm like, I have to pee so bad.
I do want it a little bit loud. I mean, it's a loud exclamation, right? So
And then I woke up. I'm like, I have to pee so bad. And then I'd go to pee.
so
This
there you
only
go.
used to
So like I was saying before, this is sort of where you have to watch out for those volume anchor points, because he goes from this to saying right? So if I want to cut that out, yeah, I'll cut that out. I couldn't decide if I wanted to keep my laughter in there or not, but so if I'm too haphazard about this, right? I can cut this out, and then I can try to do this, and okay, well, it's not going to do this now, just to prove a point. It is possible to kind of screw up these anchor points. So like, for example, if I've got like the anchor point over here, make sure that's at 0, like it can screw up all this stuff that comes before it, right? So you generally, if you can avoid it, I like to not have any anchor points or any changes in volume that go across cuts. Or if I do, I'll use my own track here as an example. I like to give it just a lot of extra space, right? So if I drag this, any which way, those anchor points are not trying to fight each other. So that's the big thing you've got to worry about with those volume anchor points. And yeah, just keep an eye out for those if that's the trick that you want to do for that kind of thing.
So bad. And then I'd go to pee. This only used to happen. It sometimes happens now, and it's very concerning when it does. But it used to only happen at Sweetbriar. So I was like, oh, clearly when I'm not comfortable to get up in a space, because maybe I'll get in trouble for being there or whatever, or, like I have to walk into the women's bathroom because, surprise, there's not much else in the dorm room in Sweetbriar. And that's
going to cut that mouth sound.
In Sweetbriar. And that somebody will be like, you're not supposed to go there.
And again, I could try to cut that
and that somebody will be like,
see how that sounds
in Sweetbriar. And that somebody will be like,
yeah, that came out pretty good. Sometimes trying to cut out of spaces that kind of roll into the next word can be a little bit difficult. Give me just one moment. The cat is at the door and does not want to be in this room. So one moment while I get that. So cats are always gonna be doing stuff at just the wrong time. So just as a reminder, since we are, how long have I been doing this for? Just as a reminder, as we're about at the hour mark, again, totally optional, but if you did find this video helpful, and want to show some support, I would not say no to a coffee. You can do that at the link right there on the screen. Again, it is totally optional, but I appreciate any coffee is because I gotta caffeinate somehow while doing all these podcasts, right?
In Sweetbriar. And that somebody will be like, you're not supposed to go there. You're not supposed to get out of here, you male presenting person. Never happened to me to never happened.
Okay, I'm gonna cut both of those ums.
Never happened to me person. Never happened to me to
yeah, that's a little bit rough. Sometimes with those rough transitions, you can kind of do this like little bit of a crossfade, and that'll make all the difference.
Male presenting person. Never happened to me.
In this case, it did not. So I'm not gonna fight this one too much. I'm actually gonna leave that in. Sometimes it's just not worth it. I could spend 5 minutes trying to fix this, or I can just leave it in.
Person. Never happened to me to get kicked off. I did. One time I did have to explain. Yeah,
I can do a lot with this. So.
One time I did have to off. I did kicked off. I did kicked off. One time I did have to explain why I was there to a security person, and then my explain why.
Let's see if I can get this one.
Explain why I
should be able to.
Have to explain why I was there to a security person, and then my wife drove up in her car and was like, "Oh, he's with me," and then they walked away. So that was weird. But yeah, that was.
Let's see.
He's with me, and then they walked away. So that was weird. But yeah, that was.
So yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, this is kind of the rest of the process. So if there are any questions in the chat, I don't know, I have the window closed here. I don't know if who is
that was weird
watching at the moment, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those now. Particularly because this is you're kind of looking at the rest of editing. I mean, it's kind of just going through and finding all the points to take out. and yeah, and most of the work, well, it's not true. Most of the confusing work is sort of in the setup with the, synchronizing and the effects chains and getting everything in there. I will say, and this is a terrible place to like do it now, but sometimes I do add clips. Like, we're not even talking about the actual episode yet, so there's no reason to add an actual community sound clip in here. But if I do need to add a clip in the middle, what I'll do is I'll just kind of split the track and I'll give it a whole lot of space, and I'll just come in here. So I'm gonna add the clip right there. I will in the other window. The reason all these say offline is because I've loaded up a different window. So I just have this up. So I'll start playing that. And then I'll just stop that, save that. I'll stop that over here in the other window. Oops. Hey, what's up, community? I hit the wrong button, and now I've got a big old Senor Chang over in my way here. Sorry, NBC, for showing your intellectual property on this stream. Anyway, so yeah, now this this sound clip showed up.
That was weird.
It's a keyboard. You can play like a guitar. Get with the times, man.
And then I'll just bring back in whatever I had. And that's how I add in sound clips to the middle, which is, I think, the only thing that probably not gonna get to, because, boy, howdy, we talk an awful lot about not community before we actually get to the community aspect. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that sound clip, though, because it's superfluous. Boom.
So that was weird. But yeah, that was a non-school nightmare that started happening while I was in school and Stacy was in school.
Okay. So yeah, here's another example.
While I was in school and Stacy was in school.
Like I said, he's not even being that serious here, but sometimes sort of toward the end of anecdotes, he does sort of start trailing off. And you can actually kind of see that here in the waveform, right? It's a little bit smaller. So what I will tend to do for that is I'll add in one anchor point, because that's going to be that 0 that it goes back to. I'll add in another anchor point, and then and that's going to be the sort of crescendo point, if you will. And then I'll add sort of in the starting one. And so now this one, wherever I drag this to, it's going to sort of keep that from trailing off a little bit. So again, so here's the original.
Started happening while I was in school and Stacy was in school.
So it's not that big of a drop off, but it is noticeable. So if I just drag this up a little bit.
Started happening while I was in school and Stacy was in school.
It evens it out a little bit. It, maybe could be better. I'll actually add in another one and make it a little bit like that. I mean, again, sometimes it's like you could spend an eternity trying to fix little things.
Started happening while I was in school and Stacy was in school.
Okay, not remotely the direction I anticipated that answer to go, but all right, I'll take it.
I mean, my main concern about whenever I'm going to.
So, and then yeah, again, there overtalk in remote podcasts definitely happens. I really try to minimize that. So again, while it is maybe relevant that I kind of start trying to say something here, it doesn't actually go anywhere, so there's no real point, right? All right, I'll take it.
I mean, my main concern about whenever.
So, there are two different ways that I can go about this. So one way is just to zero that out. All right, I'll take it.
I mean, my main concern about.
But what I noticed right before I actually did that was he actually notices the overtalk and corrects for it. So he's actually got a second take. So I'm actually just going to chop that out. And that's actually a lot easier to go, but all right, I'll take it.
My main concern about whenever
That is a little bit of a rough thing there. So I'm going to just crossfade it a little bit. To go, but all right, I'll take it.
my main concern about whenever I'm
Still not great. You can't win them all. One thing I can do is maybe increase that a little bit. I'll take it.
my main concern about whenever
Yeah, it's not terrible. I don't love it, but it's
Direction
not
I
terrible.
anticipated that answer to go, but all right, I'll take it.
my main concern about whenever I'm going to school is the real life anxiety I feel that somehow I missed a class and they're going to come take my diploma.
Okay. Also, so I remembered when you were telling.
Boy, so yeah, I have a lot of there's a lot I can do with this, right? So I'm going to shorten this gap a little bit.
Take my diploma.
Okay. Also,
And then I kind of stumble a little bit. There's a lot of false starts here.
also, so I remembered when you were telling your story about.
So I'm just going to start here.
I remembered when you were.
So I'm going to just cut that and cut that. And so that makes it a lot cleaner. I think there is something to be said for all those kind of false starts. It does, it's a little bit more conversational. But, cleaning some of them up, I think are
And they're going to come take
helpful.
my diploma.
Okay. I remembered when you were telling.
a lot of real sudden starts here. So yeah, my sort of half-assed way, and anytime I have to cut something really close, right? Like this, this is a very sudden sort of choppy start to my sentence, right?
Diploma.
Okay.
My go-to is usually just to try to solve it with a crossfade. It's kind of my lazy way of doing it.
Diploma.
Okay.
Diploma.
Okay.
In this case, not great. So what you can do is, I've definitely got something I'm saying right there.
I remembered when
I
you're.
think I'm just going to have to live with that unless I want to keep all of that sort of stuff going at the beginning. So
Diploma.
Okay. I remembered when you were telling your story about the panic of. The panic of. Your story about the panic of missing final. I have not missed.
So yeah, I mean this is the basics. I don't really
final.
know.
I
don't really know if I've got too much more to say on this specifically, because this is the vast majority of the rest of the process. It's mostly just splitting and deleting, and the key takeaways. I guess to sum up, the key takeaways that I think will really help most people with their Reaper editing is number one, doing grouping up tracks that they have been synced. Because again, remember, if we ungroup before I do that, I'm gonna make sure I save this. So ungrouped, if you ungrouped and with ripple edit turned off, if you delete that, it doesn't slice the other tracks, which is why having things grouped is very helpful. It makes sure to slice all the other grouped. There we go. It makes sure to slice all the other group tracks. Ripple editing is great because even grouped, if I delete this, it doesn't actually delete the other part. Worse, if I just have per track ripple editing, it actually unsynchronizes the whole track, which is even worse. So using a judicious combination of all tracks ripple editing and grouping tracks
makes this like ridiculously easy. It makes sure everything is kept in sync with each other, so you don't have to worry about trying to resynchronize tracks. And it makes it really quick, just because, like this looks like an yeah, you get real good at seeing those ums after a while. So, with those two, it's that simple. I mean, it's cutting out an is nothing now. Where I was, so there's that. The using the effects. So like I said, just mine are just the noise gate, the compressor, and an equalizer. I do sometimes use one that reduces background, like it cuts out background noise. I didn't end up with any background noise I had to cut out on this one. So I could show that one maybe. I just yeah, sure, I'll show that. It's pretty neat and easy to show. So there is an effect called Refer or Reafer or whatever. All of the Reaper ones start with REA. So what this does, it's got a couple of different modes. If you use this subtract mode, what that is going to do is it's going to subtract out sound from the track. So usually what you can do is you'd want to turn off the noise gate momentarily so that it can pick up any of that background noise. Then you select this build noise profile automatically. You see this line drops to 0, so it's not currently subtracting anything. And then we hit play.
This is the real life anxiety.
Actually, let's do that with my track soloed. So when you hit play, it sort of builds a background noise profile. And so this is what it's going to remove from the background. So when you uncheck automatically build noise profile, you'll note my track still sounds great. Okay. I remembered when you were telling your story about the panic of, so, this is great because sometimes we do live episodes and there is the sound of my computer fan when I'm streaming those live episodes starts going really crazy. It definitely actually does get picked up on the track. So this is really the only other plugin that I use because it does a really good job of removing that. So okay, I don't actually need that anymore. Let me actually open the episode that we did. I think, actually I want to do this in a new tab. New project tab. Let me open this because it's a really helpful thing. I think I'm doing you a disservice if I don't cover it. So was this the one? Yeah. Okay. So you should be able to hear toward the end here. If I just solo out my track and I turn off the noise gate, I don't know if you can actually hear that. Let me see if I can find something like. So yeah, it's probably, I don't know if you can hear that coming through YouTube. I know I can't hear it very well personally because I'm streaming this. So my laptop fans are actually going at a decent clip. So I actually hear my own fans through that. But you can see without this background noise reduction on, you can see a little bit of noise is coming through here, right? The VU meters are definitely doing some stuff. So if I turn that back on, you can see it's actually subtracting out most of that, while still leaving what I'm saying. Says, you want my advice? Just porker and move on. Oh, that was a terrible part to say. But anyways, says, you want my advice? it sounds exactly the same on my voice, but it's removed out all of that fan noise, which is really great. It's not often that I want to get background noise on a on a episode. I kind of wish it happened on this episode over here so I could show you how that is used. So yeah, ripple editing, grouping, effects chains. Yeah, that's really the basics. If anyone watching this has any questions, feel free to leave a comment on that. The one other thing I was going to show you is just that when all is said and done, and this is true in Audacity as well. So if you've edited in Audacity before, this is not going to be that different for you. But you can't just save this and then it's an MP3 file. What you got to do is you got to come up here to File, Render. You've got all of these different options, and it looks big and complicated and scary. I'm here to tell you it is not. So for podcasting generally, what I do, and you can play with these yourself a little bit. But what I do is I just set channels to mono, format to MP3, bitrate here is 96, and then you render the file. Clearly I'm not done. This is what I would do when I was done to get a full MP3 file. This, it takes a couple of minutes, or about a minute. You can see it's working really fast. This is pretty processor dependent. So if you've got a slower computer, it might take a couple of minutes. If you've got a really fast computer, it might have already been done by now. It just depends on how fast your computer is, how many tracks, how many effects, all that kind of stuff. And then this is how you get an MP3 file, and then this is how you post it. So there's a lot more that Reaper can do. This is just sort of a very quick intro to how I edit. And I'm not going to do the whole episode because right now I'm about 6 minutes into this episode and it has taken me 1 hour and 22 minutes. But I think you get the point, right? I mean, the rest of the, here we go. So now we've got this file, which if I open it up, right, that's the episode. So yeah, I think, there's definitely a lot more that Reaper can do. And I don't want to inundate anyone too much with with all of that. But that's the basics. The rest of my process is pretty much what you've been looking at. It's looking for ums and ahs and mouth clicks and, places where someone's a little bit too quiet or not. Most of the effects handle that pretty well, but it's that's about it. I don't have too much else to add. So like I said, if you do have questions, you can feel free to ask me in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you with answers for those. If you liked this and want more tips and tricks for Reaper, I know Elizabeth in the chat wanted a little bit more instruction on Loopback, which is a great program. Again, I really love it. It's a little bit, it is a little bit expensive, but between podcast editing and streaming and recording, it's really great for working with Skype or other programs like that, because you can, so for example, in this is what I have set up for our live episodes. So I've got this soundboard so that I can pump like sound clips into live episodes. It's a really great program. it is just a little bit expensive, and it is very specifically Mac based, which is why I'm not going too far into this. But yeah, if you liked this and you want more, some more in-depth kind of stuff, feel free to also mention that in the comments, and I will maybe do another one of these. In the meantime, I think that's what I'm going to call it. Between recording this episode earlier today, and between this episode earlier today and doing this for an hour and 20 something minutes, and a forest fire about 60 miles away, I think, is what I looked up, my throat is starting to kill me a little bit. So I'm going to call that here for now. One last reminder, if this was helpful, I do have a place where you can buy me a coffee to help, keep me caffeinated while I edit these. These episodes do, for me, Good Morning Greendale episode does take about 2 to 3 hours to edit, depending on what we're actually doing. And Ring My Bell takes a lot less time, maybe about an hour to an hour and a half. But it's a lot of editing. So, it's a slow going process. But that is what it is. So anyways, I hope anyone who watched enjoyed what they saw. And again, if this was helpful, let me know. I'd love to do another one of these where I go maybe a little bit more in depth. And until then, thanks again for watching. And I hope that if you give Reaper a try, that you enjoy it. It's absolutely my favorite editing program. I use it for podcasts. I use it for music. It can easily do both. So I'm a big fan, and I hope that you will be too. And that is where I'm going to call it for now. So I hope everyone has